about yourself. What brings you here? And where do you dream of going?" "I dream of going back to Blessing," she thought, but knew that was not what he wanted to hear. All of the story or a brief synopsis? A knock came at the door, and Marlin peeked in. "Cook will be sending up a tray as soon as it's ready." "Thank you." Highsmith turned back to Astrid. "All of it." All of it? Where to start? "I grew up in a very small town in North Dakota, the daughter of Norwegian immigrants who homesteaded there. My mother is a gifted healer. She took care of all those that she could and developed quite a pharmacopoeia of herbs and natural medicines, gaining her knowledge from the native people, her mother's training, and a dependence on God to guide and continue her efforts." "She sounds like an admirable woman." "She is." Because I was interested in what she was doing, I sometimes accompanied her on calls, helped her forage and preserve her simples, as she called them, and learned by observation. My brother married a physician, and when he brought Dr. Elizabeth to Blessing, my mother stepped back so that people would go to a more formally or scientifically trained doctor and accept her into the community. Astrid felt as though she were telling someone else's story, as clinical as this was sounding. Through all this, I decided to become a nurse in order to assist Dr. Elizabeth with her practice. She began training me while I was still in high school. It was all such a natural thing. I've always been fascinated by God's creation of the human body, how intricately and wonderfully made we are. While my goal was to go to Grand Forks to study nursing, Dr. Elizabeth's goal was to train me so that I could go for further instruction at the hospital she trained at in Chicago, but as a doctor, not a nurse. After I graduated from the school in Blessing, a catastrophe of hoof-and-mouth disease wiped out all the cloven-footed animals, including the dairy herds that provided milk for my mother's cheese house. I decided we couldn't afford for me to leave for school right then, so I spent the next year in rigorous training with Dr. Elizabeth. She's a firm taskmaster, and we both loved all the textbook learning she put me through. As I said, I'm in awe of the human body and loved every moment of the time spent learning and practicing. There's nothing more thrilling than helping a baby into this world. Her voice caught on that line. He smiled. "I've not had that privilege, but I can believe that with you." Another knock sounded, and this time a white-aproned young woman brought in a tray with a silver tea service and plates of tarts and cookies. "Set it there." Highsmith pointed to the low table in front and between the chairs. "And please pour." Once they were served, the young woman left with a smile toward Astrid, and Dean Highsmith nodded. "Please continue." Holding her saucer with cup on her knee, she did as he asked. Dr. Elizabeth finally convinced me that I was ready for more training. We didn't do many surgeries in Blessing, so she made arrangements with Dr. Morgenstein in Chicago that I be allowed to take the 6-month surgical rotation if I could pass all the examinations a student at her school would have taken. One of the prime reasons for my going there, as far as I was concerned, was the opportunity to work on a cadaver so that I could learn more about the human body. I did pass the examinations, and I have now finished that training. I was planning to return to Blessing to assist in Dr. Elizabeth's practice there, and hopefully become part of the new hospital that's being planned. Most commendable, which is why you're so young in years, but evidently not so young in maturity. You appear to be very strong and capable. Thank you. She sipped her tea and took a bite of one of the nut cookies. If he had any idea how frightened she'd been, he'd not have thought that. While she had handled the trip to Georgia well, the thought of trains and ships and who knew what else to get her to Africa sent her entire insides into full revolt. Malaria alone was enough to keep her from going. After all, she'd seen the long-term effects of that disease on Gerald Valders in Blessing. "But what happened to bring you here?" "Your friend Reverend Schumann was invited to speak in our church one Sunday. When he said the fields were ripe unto harvest in Africa and they desperately needed missionaries, especially medical missionaries, he looked right at me.